burials were conducted with military honors, a firing squad, a bugler, a Protestant, a Catholic, and a Jewish chaplain. After the trenches were covered by the bulldozers, the area was covered with grass sod. A small American flag was used to mark the location of each plywood casket. Flowers from throughout the island were collected by local women's groups. A small bouquet placed at each American flag. The remains of some 2,400 Americans were buried in this manner. Sadly, approximately 25% of the recovered remains were buried as unknown persons. At the war's end, approximately 2,000 American unknowns were buried in Hawaii. Over 600 of them were from the Pearl Harbor attack. On December the 7th, 1941, some 5,000 miles west of the Hawaiian Islands, this 23-year-old Navy ensign was killed when a formation of Japanese airplanes, known as Zeros, attacked American forces stationed in the Philippines. Ensign Tills was on his TBY-4 float plane, preparing to take off on a small bay inlet when the Zeros came diving down on his position. His plane was hit by machine gun fire and sank. Ensign Tills' body was not recovered. This photo was taken by the Japanese during that attack. Ensign Tills' plane is burning along the shoreline near the top of this photo. For 67 years, his body lay on the bottom of Manila Bay, but no longer. In October of 2007, the Philippine Coast Guard reported some local fishermen had found a submerged American aircraft. An American underwater search team was flown to the area. They located the plane in 60 feet of water. From markings found on the submerged wreckage, they determined this was Ensign Tills' airplane. During several additional dives, they recovered human remains and other personal items. These items led to his identification in December of 2008. My fellow Americans, the families of America's unaccounted for provide us with perspective and insight, way beyond anything I could possibly say here today. In March of 2009, Ensign Tills was buried with full military honors in Arlington. His only surviving sister, Jean, now 78-year-old, said this, and I quote, "Never give up hope. We waited 67 years. It's wonderful the way they are still looking for those that are missing." Unquote. America's promise to bring her brother home has been kept. Again from World War II. The date was August the 18th, 1942. This 28-year-old Marine was killed on a small Pacific island. His body was not recovered. In January of 1943, he became the United States Marine Corps' first enlisted service member to receive the Medal of Honor for action during World War II. His medal was presented to his mother. Sadly, on that day, her son's remains were unaccounted. Now moving forward 57 years to 1999, an American investigation team sat quietly as an old Papua New Guinea citizen told a story of how he was a teenager when he and his father buried some American Marines who had been killed by the Japanese. He led the American team to the site of an unmarked mass grave near Sandy Beach. That old man's story gave rise to the repatriation of 19 Marines. Their remains were repatriated back to Hawaii. On August the 17th, 2001, Sergeant Clyde Thompson was buried at Arlington. The Commandant of the Marine Corps presided over this national hero's burial. His final resting place is now on American soil. America's promise has been kept. Staff Sergeant Claude Ray and his entire B-24 bomber crew were lost near the island of New Guinea in October of 1943. Sergeant Ray was the aircraft tail gunner. Now let me move forward to October of 2010. Sergeant Ray's remains were returned to his family for burial in Riverside National Cemetery, Riverside, California. But how was this possible? In August of 2003, the U.S. Embassy received information from a local hunter indicating the location of an American crash site on the island. In 2007, the site was successfully excavated. Several identification tags, dog tags, as well as human remains were found. American scientists were able to extract DNA which matched DNA samples obtained from Staff Sergeant Ray's niece, the cheerful woman seen here. America's promise has been kept. Korea, 1954. The North Korean government returned the remains of more than 3,000 Americans who had died in North Korean POW camps and on the battlefield. Sadly, American scientists were unable to individually identify about 30% of the remains. The remains of 861 were buried as Korean War unknowns in Hawaii. Huntsville National Cemetery sits high above downtown Honolulu, Hawaii. My fellow Americans, know this: the number of unknown graves in that cemetery are decreasing. In the last 2 decades, scientific advances in remains identification technology have come a long way, and especially advances in DNA matching. Notice the number etched in the upper right corner. All U.S. government, all unknown graves are individually numbered. The U.S. government maintains a separate material case file for each grave site. A written case file with documentation of remains to cover dates, locations, and equally important, an inventory of any material items previously recovered with the remains. In 1956, a set of unidentified Korean War remains were buried in unknown grave site number 901. That grave site remained undisturbed for over 5 decades. No longer. The remains in that grave have been identified. The repatriation of Korean War veteran, Air Force First Lieutenant Robert Franklin Dees, is truly amazing. Allow me to summarize events leading to his identification. In 2007, American scientists in Hawaii initiated a forensic review of the material case file for grave number 901. As seen here, military honors were rendered as the remains were exhumed on June 3rd, 2010. Scientists re-examined the skeletal and dental remains. A single tooth gave rise to usable DNA, which matched DNA samples obtained from surviving family members. Applying modern remains identification technology, scientists were able to present a surviving niece and 3 nephews with evidence confirming the identification of Robert Dees' remains. In January 2011, Lieutenant Dees' remains were returned to his family for reinterment with full military honors at the family's burial site in Long Street Historical Cemetery, Ozark, Alabama. America's promise has been kept. One more from Korea. Air Force Captain Gordy Cope named his F-86 fighter jet Rosie. On September the 16th, 1952, he was flying in North Korean airspace known as MiG-Alley. His Rosie was shot down by a Soviet MiG fighter. Captain Cope's post-war fate was listed as missing for over 50 years. No longer, he too has come home. The repatriation story of Captain Cope provides us with some insight into how meticulous archival research, coupled with careful result in the recovery of a previously unaccounted for American. I summarize. Captain Coke's repatriation began in the Central Archives of the Russian Ministry of Defense in 1999. From there, an interview with the Soviet pilot who was credited with downing Captain Coke's plane in 1952. From the Russian archives, the story moved to Angdong, China, where two Chinese witnesses told of an American jet crashing into the third house, crashing into Li Qing's house at about noon on September the 16th, 1952. Captain Coke's story ends with his burial in Arlington in May of 2004. He has come home. America's promise has been kept. Before I move on here, let me quote from that news article, quoting an American Army officer who worked at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. He was assigned to work with the Russians in finding missing American and Russian personnel from past wars. And I now quote, "This is one of the most gratifying things I have ever done. Every one of the Russians I've met with, to the man, expressed great admiration and even shock that Americans care so much about their own and go to so much length to recover their fallen comrades. They can't believe that even after all this time, we care so much." Unquote. Moving on. Earlier I showed you some photographs of the Pearl Harbor devastation. The battleship USS Oklahoma capsized within 12 minutes of the first torpedo test, trapping 429 of her crew inside. It took over 2 months to accomplish, but American workers were able to right the big ship. Over 400 bodies were recovered from the now righted ship. 393 of them were buried as unknown. The 6 men on the top row were among the Oklahoma unknowns. No longer notice the dates and locations at the bottom of this slide. Their bodies were exhumed, individually identified, and beginning with Fireman Livingston in July of 2007, returned to their families for reinterment as known Americans. America's promise has been kept. Vietnam, my war. The date was October the 1st, 1965. Over the radio airways, the world heard, "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday, Gator 3, you're on fire. You better get out, bail out, Gator 3. The plane began to break apart as it tumbled into the jungle below. No further radio or visual contact was made with the plane's 2-man crew. A few days later, several Air Force officials arrived at Wife Patricia Sharp's front door. So many unanswered questions. Did her beloved husband bail out? Was he injured? Was he captured? That was 1965. In February of 1973, our American prisoners of war started coming home. This was a very tense period for Wife Patricia Sharp. Will her beloved husband be among the returning heroes? He was not. What became of him? Charles Sharp did not bail out in 1965. In 2004, American recovery teams found several small, very small, bone fragments and personal items at the 1965 crash site. DNA scientists were able to extract DNA from the recovered bone fragments. They attempted to match the bone DNA with DNA samples obtained from a family member. Sadly, the tests were inconclusive. DNA scientists then turned to his widow for help. Neatly stored away in a small shoebox, she retrieved 11 love letters her beloved Chuck had written to her during the war. After lying in a plain cardboard box for over 35 years, American scientists were able to extract DNA from saliva residue found on the gummed adhesive and from the back of 2 postage stamps. it proved to be a positive DNA match. In November 2006, Patricia Sharp was there when her beloved Chuck was buried in Arlington with full military honors. America's promise to bring her Chuck home has been kept. What about the Iraq War? On April the 16th, 2004, a videotape was broadcast showing an American soldier kneeling and surrounded by masked men carrying automatic weapons. The soldier was identified as Army Private First Class Keith Muffin. That was 2004. For Keith's family, 4 long years passed before a tip from an Iraqi citizen led U.S. soldiers to a farm area northwest of Baghdad. According to Army sources, Keith Muffin's remains were recovered in March of 2008 by soldiers from the 1st Battalion, 21st Infantry, based out of Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. On March 20th, 2008, his remains were repatriated back to Hawaii. 10 days later, DNA testing confirmed the identity. Keith Muffin's fate is no longer unknown. He has come home from the Iraq War. America's promise has been kept. Today, America's unaccounted for number over 83,000. Let no American forget, these brave men and women are America's sons and daughters. This grateful nation has not, it will not, abandon our missing heroes, nor will we abandon their families. The stories I have presented here are but a small fraction of the over 1,600 and counting successful repatriations carried out by 2 organizations, EPMO and JPAC. I quote from the JPAC mission statement. The mission of the Joint POW-MI Accounting Command is to achieve the fullest possible accounting for all Americans lost during our nation's previous conflicts. Unquote. Their mission is complex, a 6-step process ending with family closure, with burial of a loved one on American soil with full military honors. A side comment here. The families of America's missing heroes are and shall remain the focal point of the DPMO JPAC mission. Once a scientific identification is determined, the surviving family members are contacted in person, not by telephone, telegram, or email. In nearly every case, it is the family, not the government, who determines the final place of interment. At the family's option, a family member will be flown to the JPAC headquarters in Hawaii to escort the remains of their loved one home. Any personal items such as rings, watches, medals, medallions, letters used in the identification process are returned to the family. On that note, allow me to deviate a moment from my prepared script. Last Friday, I gave this presentation at SUU in Cedar City. To promote attendance, I was given permission to set up my POW-MI table in the Student Center building. The day before I was to speak, I was standing next to my table when a young SUU student showed me a Vietnam War MIA bracelet. The young lady said the bracelet was her grandmother's. I thanked her for bringing it and told her that I would see what information I could find about the name on the bracelet. When I got home, I was stunned by what I discovered. On the day of the presentation, Amy was sitting in the audience when I shared the following information about her grandmother's MIA bracelet hero. Air Force Captain Lawrence G. Everett is no longer missing. On November the 8th, 1967, his F-105 Thunder Chief was hit by enemy ground fire near a North Vietnamese railroad bridge. At the end of the war, his fate was recorded as MIA. Like no other story, the repatriation of Amy's Captain Everett chronicles this nation's unwavering commitment to bring a loved one home. Some 35 years after Captain Everett's plane was shot down, a joint Vietnamese and JPAC investigation team returned to the area of the crash site. They interviewed several local rice farmers who witnessed the plane crashing into a flooded rice field. The team determined that an excavation mission was needed. The amazing part of this repatriation story began in October of 2000. In advance of his upcoming visit to Vietnam, then President Clinton invited Everett's two sons, Dan and David, to fly to Vietnam and be with him when he visited the site. Sons Dan and David put on their coveralls, climbed down into the mud pit to work alongside Vietnamese villagers shifting through the mud and debris. The dig was unsuccessful. However, America's commitment to their father's repatriation did not end with this one excavation. JPAC teams returned 3 times, each time digging a little deeper into the Vietnam mud. Everett's daughters, Tamara and Elizabeth, were given the opportunity to be part of the second dig in 2001. They too worked in the pit alongside Vietnamese workers shifting through the mud. On the last dig, the excavation team uncovered bone fragments, Everett's wallet containing his ID with an identifiable photo, his dog tags, his LDS tags, and his service pistol near the bottom of the excavation pit. On the day of President Clinton's visit to the site, he said this, quote, "Whether we are American or Vietnamese, I think we all want to know where our loved ones are buried. Our nation, America, has made a commitment that we will not rest until we achieve the highest possible accounting for our lost veterans," unquote. I add here, America was then, America is today, actively helping the Vietnamese people to search for their unaccounted loved ones. In July of 2002, sons Dan and David Everett flew to the JPAC headquarters in Hawaii to escort their father's remains back to their homeland for burial with full military honors in Chandler, Arizona. Notice what they did. They covered a blanket, a complete uniform in his casket. At the SUU presentation last Friday, I gave Amy a copy of this book, which is all the news articles on his recovery. Moving on. Not all of America's unaccounted for are military service personnel, nor are they all men. Who was Carolyn Chase? She did not carry a gun, nor was she a member of our military. No, she was among the 79,000 brave Americans who were unaccounted for following World War II. In August of 2009, she was laid to rest next to her parents in her hometown. You will find a copy of her story in this 50-page book. This is a book that I created. There are 38 repatriation stories and additional information about the POWMI issues. If you would like a copy, send me an email, and I will attach a digital copy to my email reply. Remains repatriation, a worldwide commitment. In the past 24 months, 32 flag-draped caskets, like the 5 seen here, have arrived at Hickam Airport Base, Hawaii. 2 caskets from Papua New Guinea, 1 from the Republic of Palma, 1 from Vanuatu, 1 from Hungary, 2 from France, 4 from Germany, 1 from the Solomon Islands, Guadalcanal, 1 from the Republic of Korea, 8 from the Lao People's Democratic Republic, 2 from the Kingdom of Cambodia, 7 from the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, 2 from Iraq, all within the past 24 months. At that step in the repatriation process, The identity of the remains in those caskets are unknown. Now back on American soil, the caskets were transported to the JPAC Central Identification Laboratory, where the identification process begins. Notice the bus in the background on the bottom slide. Located on Hickam Air Force Base, Hawaii, and commanded by a flag-grade military officer, this is the largest remains identification laboratory of its kind in the world, with over 50 highly dedicated PhD scientists. The lab identifies on average about 6 individuals a month. I know this to be true. Your government is strongly committed to this worldwide mission. As I stand here, JPAC teams are actively searching on land and underwater. To date, they have accounted for 78 this year, 78 within the previous 9 months. Their individual names and applicable DPO news releases are in this book. There's a short copy in the lobby up there. I end with a personal story. I began my Navy career flying to and from that American aircraft carrier, USS Ranger, as it sailed up and down the Vietnam coastline. I was the youngest pilot assigned to the Ranger's rescue helicopter unit. Never again will I allow myself to forget that I sailed back under the Golden Gate Bridge in August of 1966. I came home to my family. 7 of my Ranger shipmates did not. Their names are found in the upper right box. They were unaccounted for. Their loved ones were left with so many unanswered questions. Today, I am so very proud of my government, as 4 of my shipmates are no longer unaccounted for. They have been repatriated. POW Dingler escaped in July of 1966. He came home alive. POW Kaufman was released after 6 years by the North Vietnamese in 1973. He returned alive. The center photo is shipmate Logan. His remains lie in an overgrown Vietnamese jungle for over 20 years. No longer, his remains were returned to his family in 1994 for burial with full military honor. The second photo is shipmate James Thomas. We knew he had been captured. When the Ranger came home, he was a prisoner of war in North Vietnam. The center photo here is a powerful image. Shipmate Connell died at the hands of his North Vietnamese captors. In March of 1974, the North Vietnamese government released his remains. They were returned to his wife and their 2 children for closure on American soil. This American hero is buried at Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery in San Diego. Today, 3 of my Ranger shipmates, their names are in the bottom box, are still unaccounted for. Forgotten? Never. Their names are now permanently etched on this sterling silver bracelet. For them, the pain and suffering of combat has long since ended. But for the living, and especially for their families, the suffering continues. Lest we forget them. In war, service to country includes not only our brave military warriors, but it includes their families. The theme of this year's poster, Until They Are Home, pays special tribute to MIA families. Depicted here are 3 generations from one family looking at family photos of an unaccounted for loved one. How many here recognize this flag? What does it represent? Now part of the United States flag code. How many know that this flag is to be flown across America on the 3rd Friday in September? It is to be flown as a symbol of what that day represents. know that other than the American flag, that stark black and white flag is the only flag on display 24/7 under our nation's Capitol Rotunda, where it stands today as a powerful symbol of our nation's commitment to the POW-MIA issue. Last Friday was National POW-MIA Recognition Day. That flag was to fly at locations across this land of the free. Friday, I drove around Cedar City and St. George area to see how many POW flags were flying. I found one in Cedar, in front of the SU campus. I found 4 in the St. George area. One in front of this campus, one in front of the Washington City Post Office, one in front of the Washington City Government Building, and one in front of Alliance VFW Building. On this special day of remembrance, both flags proudly waved at the entrance to my home. 9/11, Patriot Day, a day of national observance, a day to remember. At the base of what was the towers in New York, at the Pentagon in our national capital, in a Pennsylvania farm field, American patriots stood quietly as the names of nearly 3,000 victims were read aloud. After each name, the sound of a brass bell echoed through the air. It took over 3 hours to read all of the names. America remembers 9/11, 2001. The tragedy of that day was compounded by the enormous forces created by the collapsing towers. Today, 11 years after the collapse, like America's 83,000 MIA families, no graveside closure for many 9/11 families and co-workers. As chronicled in this news article, the unidentified victims of 9/11 have not been abandoned. Ernest Gaines is the latest 9/11 victim to be identified. As seen here, the third Friday in September has no American calendar entry. Is National POW-MIA Recognition Day not worthy of a calendar entry? Is this public apathy or simply a lack of public awareness? Look how many people are in this audience. Allow me to read from this September 20, 2012 news release. Each year, the President issues a proclamation asking Americans to recognize the nation's service members and those who were held as prisoners and those who are still missing and their families. Observances of National POW Recognition Day are held across the country on military installations, at state capitals, in local communities, schools, and various veterans facilities. To all here today, I ask, why so few ceremonies last Friday? Why so few POW-MIA flags flying in and around the St. George area on this National Day of Remembrance? Apathy or lack of awareness? On this National Day of Remembrance, shipmate William D. Farley, I remember. Shipmate William M. Christensen, I remember. Shipmate Donald J. Olinsky, I remember. World War II, 72,792, I remember. Korea, 7,996, I remember. Vietnam, 1,687, I remember. Gulf War, 2, I remember. Iraq, Afghanistan, 6, I remember. Please be seated. Thank you for standing. Over 83,000 American sons, daughters, fathers, and mothers are unaccounted for on this day. They are unaccounted for in some faraway land. The men at the top of this photo, the men at the top of this photo are all Utah family loved ones. Is Renee here? Renee was supposed to come today. She's the daughter of one of the men in that top row. The bottom row, the first 4 are all Medal of Honor recipients. Freedom from foreign aggression. Lest the American people forget the events of Pearl Harbor, 1941, 9/11, 2001. Our national freedoms come with a heavy cost. Mottos like "No one left behind," "Keeping America's promise," are not just rhetorical words, but words of action. No matter your political affiliation, it is we, the American people, not just old veterans like me, who must stand united in this National Day of Remembrance. Stand united in upholding and honoring the men and women assigned to the DPMO JPEC mission. I shout from the highest mountaintop: no brave American veteran should be denied a homecoming. No MIA family should be denied a loved one's closure on American soil. Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, homecoming with military honors. On this day, until every story ends, remember them, honor them. May a loving God watch over all of America's brave sentinels of freedom. Thank you. Are there any questions? No questions? It's over. I'll stay up here in case somebody wants to ask some questions or whatever. Some of my books are up there. You're welcome to look at it. Again, you can have a copy of that big book. Don't forget there's flyers up the lobby. Take them.
I want to stay for a minute.
Thank you for coming.
I want to stay
I
for
wish there were more. Not enough know about this.
We have one more on the one because we're not working with
How do you get that put on the calendar? How do you get the date where it'll actually?
Well, the calendars are produced by commercial companies, but there's a billion of those calendars printed every year. You'll find it on any calendar that a veteran organization prints, like our veteran calendar is on it. But 9/11 occurred 11 years ago, and this has been in existence for 14 years, and it's not on the calendar.
National holiday.
That's not a holiday. No, 9/11, 9/11 is not a holiday.
National holiday is put on the calendar.
Correct. National Days of Remembrance observance are supposed to be on the calendar, but it's not.
Okay, that's a mistake.
No, that was my question. Why not? Is it apathy or is it lack of awareness?
Let's find the library if we can.
But the president, there's a copy of the president's proclamation.
Hold on.
He encouraged all.
Come say hi to this guy. How come?